Welcome to another week of Pick 3 DST, where I give you 3 defenses I like, 1 defense I'm fading, and 1 defense I'm stashing ahead of Week 7 of the NFL season. As a reminder, these are not my full weekly DST rankings. If you want to check those out, you can click the link below, which will take you to the article that I update as the week goes on when we get weather concerns and injury updates and things of that nature. As always, we're going to start with our accountability check and what was another below average week for our video picks. So far, this has been a tough season for streaming defenses. There doesn't seem to be any elite teams in the NFL this year, and that has led to some unpredictability from week to week and a lot of surprising upsets, and that has impacted the streaming landscape. Our sleeper defense for last week, the Tennessee Titans, scored 5 points, but that was tied for 12th on the week in terms of fantasy defense scoring, so that should tell you a little bit about the scoring landscape. Our solid defense, the Pittsburgh Steelers, scored 10 points, so we really like that. However, our stud defense, the Green Bay Packers, scored only 2 points in a strong matchup against the Bengals. And then we faded the Seahawks, who scored -3 points against the Bucks 2 weeks ago, but they put up 11 points despite all of their injuries on defense against the Jaguars. And so we have to go back to the drawing board a bit here as we head into Week 7. My sleeper defense for the week is the Indianapolis Colts. Consensus has them down at 19th, but I have them at 9th on the week. Now, I know the Chargers beat the Dolphins last week, but this is a Chargers offense that is incredibly banged up, and they give up 7.8 fantasy points per game to opposing defenses over the last 4 weeks. We know they're not going to be without Amari Hampton. There's a chance they're not going to be without Quentin Johnston as well, since they have a Thursday night game the week after that they might want to make sure he's rested for. And Kamani Vidal looked really good against the Dolphins, but this Dolphins run defense is atrocious. The Colts defense overall is better. The Colts run defense is going to be much better, so things should be a little bit tougher for Vidal this week. On the season, the Colts rank 5th in the NFL in turnover rate, they rank 12th in opponent scoring rate, and they rank 15th in EPA per play allowed. That's expected points added per play allowed. So they are an above average defense going up against a really banged up offense that's going to be playing almost an entirely backup offensive line. And so I think the Colts can sneak into the top 10 this week. My solid defense for the week is the Kansas City Chiefs. Consensus has them at 4th, and I have them up at 4th on the week. Now, this hasn't been a great season so far for the Chiefs as a fantasy defense. They're averaging just 5.8 fantasy points per game on the season. However, they have not had the easiest schedule up until this point, and the Raiders are giving up 10 fantasy points per game to opposing offenses over the last 4 weeks. That is 4th worst in the NFL. As of right now, I don't expect Brock Bowers to play. It sounds like they're going to hold him out through the bye week, and we also know that starting left tackle Colton Miller is not going to play, and that Raiders offensive line has been really inconsistent this year, and that's a problem against a Chiefs defense that has the 5th ranked pressure rate in the NFL right now. I don't love a lot of the underlying metrics for the Chiefs, but I just really like this matchup, and so I think that I'm going to trust the matchup and a Chiefs team that I think is really hungry for a win right now to get above 500, and so I'm happy to play the Chiefs in fantasy this week. Before we get to my stud defense, pause this video and comment below. Let me know which defense you're starting this week, or ask me any start-sit questions, and I'll get to those as the week goes on. My stud defense for the week is the New England Patriots. Consensus has them at 2nd, and I have them at 3rd on the week. We're going to go back to the well here after the Patriots really failed to deliver against the Saints last week. However, the Saints are really just an average to slightly below average matchup for opposing fantasy defenses, and that is not the case with the Tennessee Titans, who have allowed 12.5 fantasy points per game to opposing defenses over the last 4 weeks. That is the second worst mark in all of football, and so I really like this matchup for the Patriots. We may see one of those mythical post-firing bumps for the Titans. They just fired their head coach, Brian Callahan. Sometimes that leads to a little bump in offensive production, but there's really not a lot to get excited about for this Titans offense, and Calvin Ridley hurt his hamstring last week, and it didn't look really good. I would expect Ridley to be out for this week, so you're going to have rookie quarterback Cam Ward with a new head coach without his top wide receiver option against a Patriots defense that ranks 9th in the NFL in turnover rate, 11th in opponent scoring rate, and 15th in pressure rate. And so I really do like this matchup for the Patriots, and even if they don't deliver a top 3-4 performance for us, I think they have a really solid and safe floor, and so I think they can be played in all fantasy formats. The defense I'm fading for this week is the Philadelphia Eagles. Consensus has them at 7th, but I have them down at 18th on the week. The Eagles have really not been as strong of a fantasy unit as we're used to seeing. So far on the season, they rank 12th in EPA per play allowed, 14th in pressure rate, 23rd in turnover rate, and 27th in opponent scoring rate. So they've been a really below average defense. We just saw them not deliver against the Giants when they lost on Thursday Night Football last week. Now they're going up against a Vikings team that allows just 5.3 fantasy points to opposing offenses. It sounds like Carson Wentz is going to start again, and so we don't have the expected boost of the Eagles taking advantage of J.J. McCarthy, or a rookie quarterback. And so I think that this Vikings offense, especially with Jordan Addison back in the fold, is a pretty solid unit, and I don't think they're going to give the Eagles a lot, and the Eagles aren't taking a lot right now, so I can't see them finishing as a top 10 defense this week. Lastly, my stash to get ahead of waivers in Week 8 is the Atlanta Falcons, who are rostered in just 2% of leagues right now. Now, that's likely to change after we saw the Falcons just thoroughly dominate the Bills on Monday Night Football. On the season, the Falcons rank 5th in EPA per play allowed, 6th in pressure rate, 7th in conversion rate allowed, and 8th in turnover rate. This is a really young defense that's invested a lot of high picks on the defensive line. They got starting quarterback A.J. Terrell back a couple weeks ago, and that's been huge for them as a defensive unit. I think it's really promising in a showdown in Week 8 against the Miami Dolphins. This Falcons team blitzes more than almost anybody else. They're going to get a lot of pressure on Tua Tagovailoa. He doesn't have anybody to throw to, and when Tua faces a lot of pressure, he's prone to turnovers and mistakes. And so I really like the Falcons next week, but I think the Falcons could also be a fringe top 10 option this week against the 49ers based on how they played against the Bills on Monday Night Football. So I'd be looking to add the Falcons in a lot of leagues if I'm struggling with my defense right now. That's going to do it for this week of Pick 3 DST. As a reminder, you can click the link below to get my full updated DST rankings, which I'll update as the week goes on. Don't forget to like and subscribe to get Pick 3 DST every week, plus all of our football and fantasy football content over at NBC Sports. I'll check you next week, and good luck on Sunday.